Hello, my name is Jimmy Vegas and welcome to the 7th in a series of video tutorials for Unity 3D. Now, in this 7th episode, what we will be looking at is maybe tidying up a little of our asset window down here. It's a little bit too messy now. And we'll be looking at the big one, terrains. Now, before we go any further, terrains are simply an object within the game which are very, very versatile and can create landscapes of different types, whether you have mountains, snow regions, forests, that sort of thing. So today, like I say, we'll be looking at terrains, but knowledge on terrains will continue in the next couple of tutorials because there is quite a bit to learn on terrain. Okay, so first of all, down here, I'm going to quickly tidy up some of our assets. So here, create folder, and we will call this one audio. And I'm simply going to drag and drop everything, all our audio files into here. It just makes everything a little bit more neater. We'll do another one. We'll call this materials, and we will select all the materials, hold control, just click all of them, just drag them in. Unity really is that simple. So this will only take me just a second. Next, we'll probably do it here. Create another folder. We'll call this one textures. Same again. Hold control. Take everything over into textures. And lastly, we'll do a folder scripts. And we'll take these in here. Now, as you can see, we have a nice little assortment here. It just makes things easier in the long run. Okay, down to business. What we'll do is we will look at terrains. So, firstly, game object, create other, and down here is terrain. And you'll see, if we double click on it, the terrain is huge. Terrains are rather large. It's quite a lot to deal with. So what we're going to do is essentially we're going to keep our little village where it is, but we want to move the terrain over this way slightly and this way. What we want to try and do is make it so as once you exit our little dungeon, just opposite this wall here, you will come out onto the terrain. So what we'll do here is, firstly, over here we have different tools you can use within the terrain. This one here, what we'll do is we will just select this here, hold the mouse button and drag up. All that does is raise the terrain. So you can see you're creating sort of a mountainous sort of region. It's not perfect, but it does the trick. So at the moment it's untextured, so it just looks a bit dull. So to get around this, here on the little paint texture, click edit textures and add texture. Now here, click select, and for simplicity all I'm going to use is the grass texture we used previously in our village. So if you double click, and for ease double click this again and click add, and you will see that our entire terrain has been textured. This is exactly what we want. So next we're going to play around with some other tools here, and as you can see we create more little things around. The closer you come to the edge, the more it raises up the edge of the terrain. Now when you're actually playing and say you're stood around here facing this way, the player will not see what is behind the terrain here. So that's pretty good. Okay, so as you can see here, because we have altered our terrain, we have inevitably dragged it up onto our village. So if we play, you can see, you should be able to see, oh no, maybe it's because we're under the terrain. That's likely the case. Yes, as you can see, because we were under the terrain, we couldn't actually see it. But now as we've come out of it, we can actually walk onto it, up our mountain that we have created. So, let's end that. All I'm going to do, just for now, is just move the terrain outwards, just a little more, like so. I think it's maybe best if we change the y-axis very slightly on the terrain to about there. I think that should do. That looks all in order. Now you will notice at this point, if you were to stand here on the terrain, you would see all this bit sticking out of our little village. Don't need to worry about that for now. We will sort that in a later tutorial. So what we'll do is we will add another texture. So go onto your little paintbrush, add texture, and over here, if we scroll down, we can see we have all the textures we had previously imported. Now, what we want is a sort of a path. So if we cancel that off, and if we drag and drop into Unity, we'll put it here for now. Just wait for it to, there we go. And right click, create, new material. And we will call this one terrain path 001. And what we'll do is if we drag and drop over here. Now you will notice this window does look slightly different than what we usually do. Reason for that is over here you have debug and normal. Now mine has actually switched to normal. This is what your normal inspector window would look like. Usually in previous tutorials we've had the debug permanently selected. So if you still got the debug, it's just a case of dragging and dropping onto here as usual. So once we've got that, I'm going to put this into textures. Just go into textures. Put this into materials. And in our material, you should be able to see, where do we have it? Terrain path there. So if we go back to our terrain, up here, click normal, edit textures, add texture, and here we will put our terrain path 001. If I can find it, and it's not appeared. Okay, not to worry. Okay, so if we go to terrain again, edit textures, add texture, and let's drag and drop. Still not working. Apologies for this. This is being a bit of a pain. Okay, if we try dragging it back into here, and let's try going from there. So, terrain again, on here, normal selected, edit textures, add texture, select, yes, for some reason it is only taking our normal texture. We'll go with that. My apologies for all that problems then. Unity can get very confusing at times. Okay, so now you'll see here we have two textures, one for grass, one for path. So what we'll do is on our terrain now, we will use our paint tool. We will select, let's say, this brush, select our path, let's move along slightly, and now, with any luck, we can paint our path. Now, the wonderful thing about a terrain is you could literally create these mountains in a sort of dark colour if you wanted to. They can be multiple colours. You're not technically restricted to the amount of textures you can have here. It is purely memory based, so if you want tons and tons and tons of different colour textures on your terrain, then go ahead. You shouldn't have too many problems. So for now, I'm just going to play around a little. Add in some strange paths. You can also have different types. Let's play around with what you've got here. Like so. Let's raise some more here. Play around with your terrains. See what you can come up with. It's amazing what you can do. So next what we'll do is, let's see, let's put a few trees down. So trees down. What we'll do is we will import some packages. So down here in your asset window, if you right click and import package and tree creator. Now this will take just a second to import. So if we click import, wait for it to import, and all this can do is basically it's a tree creator, literally tree creator. You can create any sort of tree you want. If you want a bog standard tree, it's already pre-made. If you want to play around with trees and make them look odd, you can. I'll show you that just as soon as this is loaded. Shouldn't take too much longer, I don't think. Another couple of seconds and we'll have it in and ready to go. Okay, so there we are, imported, and here you will see the tree creator. And if you go into this folder, trees, you'll see the bog standard tree set out called Big Tree. It is simply just a case dragging and dropping. So if we double click to zoom in, you'll see our tree right there. Now what I'm going to do is, for now, I'm going to duplicate the tree and just pull it out this way, duplicate again, and pull another one out this way. Now we'll leave our trees on our terrain for now, but what we will also do is we will go to our village, which we've hardly seen in this tutorial, and what we'll do is we'll drag and drop a tree right in our village, and this is the tree we will play around with. So over here, when you have your tree selected, you will see essentially how your tree is set out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag these around, and you can see by doing different things it will change your tree. And it appears to have frozen. It's just moving things around. There we go. So by moving these things here, you will be able to change the shape of your tree. It's been very slow today, I must say. So if we try putting this here, give it a moment just to think about it. May take longer than you want it to. And there we go. Just by moving that one little thing, you will see that the shrubbery on our tree at the top has changed slightly. It has decreased. Now to put that into comparison, there is a standard tree. So when we play and walk over to our trees, you will see they are different. Only very slightly, but the reason they're only slightly different is because we have only moved just one of these here. There is much more to be done with trees just by playing around with these. It's not something I will go into in this tutorial, but when we get deep into details within our world, that is when I'll get into trees and how to manipulate them. So, for now, we go back to our terrain and have a quick look. You'll see that our terrain is slowly becoming something. We've got paths, albeit not very good paths. We have a few trees where we can possibly create a forest, and we have mountains. So we will leave terrains there for now, but what we'll do, ready for maybe next tutorial or the tutorial after, is we will set up some enemies, because very, very soon we will be looking at doing some enemies, because we need to start putting combat in to make it feel more like a an RPG, as it were. So for now, in our little dungeon that we created not too long ago, I'm simply going to put in a game object. We'll put in a capsule. We will just drag this down to the floor. It's quite high up, that. So if we just drag it down, there we are. We will duplicate, drag this over here, and duplicate again, and just drag it over here into the distance of our dungeon. So these now are our enemies, which we will create some scripting for, and the cursor we have in the middle of our screen will become very useful when we create our weapon. Doing so means we also need animation, but that is for another tutorial. So for now, what I'm going to do is, because we haven't renamed anything here in this tutorial, I'm going to keep terrain named as terrain. I will rename this as enemy 001, this one as enemy 002, and this one as enemy 003. We'll rename this tree. We'll keep it big tree and call it 001. Again with this one, 002. This one is 003. Another one, 004. And finally, 005. Now, as you can see, our hierarchy is starting to look a bit messy, but I'm not going to tidy it up in this tutorial because I don't think there really is much of a need at the moment. But the last thing I am going to do for this tutorial is, if we go to our terrain and game object, create other, and point light. I'm actually going to create some light to cover, hopefully, most of our terrain. So what we'll do is range. Let's change this to 100. As you can see, it is far, far too small still. 1000 looks better, I would say. But let's change that to 2000. There we go. Looks a bit better now. It looks a bit better. So as you can see, I'm going to end it there for this tutorial, which actually kind of nicely brings me on to next tutorial. As you can see here, next tutorial we will be going on to shadows. There are different ways of having shadows in Unity, so we can certainly look into that. We'll be looking more into the terrain and our mountains, of how to make them look a little more like mountains. We will be hopefully looking at getting our dungeon with an exit onto our terrain, so we can work that out. And if there is time next tutorial, we'll look at sorting our enemies out. If not, more than likely the tutorial after. So for now, that is our world we have created up till now. That is the end of this episode, and I do hope to see you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching.